one of the key concepts from David Allen's wonderful book, Getting Things Done, is the idea of what he calls a next action. And a next action is different from a project. And the distinction is very important. Okay, so a project, I should say, a project is anything that takes multiple steps to complete. Okay, so climb Mount Everest is a project. Right. Okay, you need to get some stuff, you need to train, you need to figure out how to climb a mountain.
Right.
You don't just like go out
Start
and climb Mount Everest. There's a series of things you need to do. That's a project. An action or a task is something that you can sit down and do. So call your parents is an action. You pick up the phone, you dial it. You call. Okay. A next action is an action that exists within a project. Okay, so you can't do a project. You can only do actions. And so to move the project forward, it's always a good question to ask yourself, what is the very next action? What's the next thing I can do on this project to move the project forward? And if you think in terms of next actions, so keep a list of all the projects that you're working on.
Sure.
But, writing down on your to-do list, climb Mount Everest, is not very productive because it's big, it's scary.
Well, I think your brain doesn't actually know what to do with that information.
Exactly. And so to translate that project into something that your brain actually can do something with, that's where you think about what's the next action.
Yeah.
So, the next action to climb Mount Everest may be buy plane ticket to Nepal.
Cool.
That's something you can do. So thinking in terms of, keeping track of the projects that you're working on. And I just use a little index card, 3x5, where I write down all of my active projects. And I have about 20-ish at a time, more or less. But I always use that little list when I'm dealing with my task list, which is I use a system called Autofocus by Mark Forster, which is really good. But I look at my little index card with my list of projects and use that to prime myself to figure out, okay, what are the very next things that I need to do to move all of these things forward? Good. And those go on my task list, and I can make those most important tasks and actually get them done.
Cool.
So, you're right. It's like next actions are how you can simulate to your brain something that, taken as a whole.
It's like,
yeah. I mean, there's an old proverb that your dad uses all the time that I love. Is, you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. Yeah. And that's true. If on your task list you have eat elephant, that's big.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it's like you had a good example of this earlier.
Well, I was thinking about it because I think particularly when you've been working in this kind of thing for a while and you know all of this stuff, it's easy to get a little bit lazy and be like, I know that, I don't have to do it anymore. But it's important to remember that, like, looking at something like that to your brain is like saying to somebody who doesn't know how to do a foxtrot, like, do a foxtrot. That word doesn't really mean anything.
Yep.
But if you say, all right, stand with the dance partner, take one step back, take one step to your left, take one step forward, and then take one step to your right. It's like, oh, I can figure that out and figure out that means do a foxtrot. But if you just say that, it's kind of like saying to your brain, like, write book. It's whoa,
exactly. And so the next action would be, work on this chapter. Yeah. And, over there, we
have a long list.
Yeah, there's a list of all the things that I have yet to do. And it's broken down into what's the very next thing that I need to work about or work on. And it's far easier to think about the project in that way. What do I need to do next? Instead of, do this huge monolithic thing that I've never done before.
Yeah.
So that's next action. Separate your projects from your actions. And for every project that you have, focus on the very next thing that you need to do to move the project forward. And you'll actually get something done.